From the field to the film room to the war room, we've got you covered every step of the way as the road to the draft starts right now. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Armchair Scouts. I am your host, Shane Haff. You can follow me on Twitter and YouTube at Shane Haff NFL. I'm joined today by my co-host and fellow draft enthusiast Dives. Give him a follow on Twitter at Mr. Crockpot. Be sure to check out his podcast, Party on Broad. Dives, how are you doing today?
Doing well, man. This is my favorite part of the week, talking college football and NFL draft. Let's get it.
All right. I'm also joined by his, some would say sidekick, some would say co-host, but it is Ryan Reese. Give him a follow on Twitter at Philly Sports PSA. Ryan, how you doing?
Hey, Robin.
Well, I'm hurt. First and foremost, a little shocked. Wasn't expecting to be just smacked over the head there, but other than that, I guess I'm all right.
You know, we just recorded Birds of the Round Table, peek behind the curtain for those of you just listening on the podcast feed. We record these shows back to back, even though they come out 2 days apart. And Ryan was a little down, so just thought we'd try to put a little smile on Ryan's face there as we transition to some college football. But last but not least, I'm also joined by my co-host, who I would never call a sidekick on Chalk Talk, Mark Henry Jr., although he bailed on me this week. Give him a follow on Twitter at Mark Henry Jr. _ Be sure to check out his Tough Cover radio show every Saturday. Mark, how you doing tonight?
You're lucky I didn't bail on you here. No, I'm joking. I'm in Memphis, Tennessee, and I'm, a little under the weather from traveling all over the planet over the last month or so. But if there's anything that gets me out of my hotel bed to talk, it's how do we fix the 2024 Eagles? So let's talk about that with the 2025 NFL draft.
It's like college football and hotel room Mark. Hotel room Mark is my favorite Mark.
My least favorite.
All right, well, let's dive into it. Those of you that are joining, maybe it's your first episode of the Armchair Scouts. What we do on this show every week is we're going to give you an Eagles prospect to watch, each of us, from the college football on Saturday. Maybe you're not the biggest college football fan, but maybe you'll flip on a game and look at it. Maybe you're a hardcore fan. Whatever it is, we're going to give you some guys that we think the Eagles could be interested in come draft. Then we'll turn the page and make some player of the week predictions, and then we'll follow it up with our game of the week. Let's dive in here. And Mark, I'll throw it to you first. Who is your Eagles prospect to keep an eye on this week?
This is a weird one, and I don't even know what I think of this player, to be quite honest. But he's such a unicorn in a way that I think Howie will pay attention and will probably do his due diligence on this guy, and it's Harold Perkins from LSU. And if you thought Bryce Huff or Nolan Smith were undersized, then take a look at Harold Perkins. But it all depends what he is. So he is 6'1", 220. They've played him as an edge over the last couple of years. I mean, they do move him all around. This year, they've been using him as a Sam linebacker on the strong side. He did get 2 QB pressures and 1 sack that was called back on a penalty last week when they moved him to that. Brian Kelly came out and said that that's where they think he's going to be the rest of the year. It's just going to be interesting to see what he is at the next level. And he really kind of exploded onto the scene as a freshman. I remember Dives and I came on here. I don't know who it was against. I believe he had a 3 or a 4 sack game. He had 7.5 sacks on the year. He had a huge game where he exploded, and Dives and I were saying, put this guy as the number 1 pick for 2025 already. And then he kind of disappointed last year, only 5.5 sacks in 2023. And LSU as a whole defensively went from being pretty good in 2022 to one of the worst in football in 2023. So it's going to be a big year for Harold Perkins just to find out what he is and how he's going to be viewed going on to the next level. And I'm really curious to hear from you guys what you guys think of this guy. Is his size kind of just disqualifying for you as kind of an edge rusher, or are you looking at him as kind of a jack of all trades type player?
Brian, I'll throw that one to you. I know you and Dibes have had conversations, I'm sure, on Party on Broad about Harold Perkins. He's not a guy that I have really looked at much in depth yet. But Ryan, what are your thoughts on Perkins?
Yeah, listen, I think he has certainly a versatile skill set, but again, you kind of just look at his size, and it doesn't scream traditional edge rusher in the NFL. So that's I think unless he's like prepared to truly bulk up, but that might change him as a player completely. So I think you look at who he is now. I think he translates more to a linebacker, but just either way, it's a position in need, and he certainly can and has the ability to get after that quarterback. Again, something that the Eagles apparently forgot to teach their coach their players. So either way, it's definitely I would love to have Perkins on the Eagles, that's for sure. But I'm leaning linebacker. That's me.
All right, Dibes, what about you? What are your thoughts?
Linebacker all the way. You look at his numbers so far this year. He's played linebacker 121 snaps. He's been on the defensive line 24 snaps. You look at last year, he played more on the D-line than in the box, which is shocking because I thought we were going to see more edge rusher Harold Perkins. At the end of the day, I think he would be BPA in the first round, and that's always my MO for the Birds. However, you look at the way the Eagles were run by Vic Fangio this past week against the Falcons, not a lot of creativity with their linebackers. So for me, if we're going to see more like 5-man fronts and things like that to get Harold Perkins in a position to succeed, which is attacking the quarterback, then yes. The Vic Fangio thing is a little puzzling for me. It's interesting. I think Harold Perkins is right there with Abdul Carter in terms of pound for pound, one of the best athletes in this draft period. You look at Abdul Carter, who, like Harold Perkins, you thought were going to play more edge this year, but for Perkins, it's not the case. So it's interesting. Would I draft Harold Perkins in the first round? Absolutely. I think he is a bona fide star if he's put in position to succeed. Although we just got done doing a Birds of the Round Table show talking about an Eagles pass rush that is getting blown up by backup tight ends, and they can't even shed blocks by backup tight ends. So it's a great question.
All right, so Harold Perkins, you can keep an eye on. Mark, who does he play this week? Did you say that?
He is on LSU, by the way. I don't know if I said that for anyone who's listening and didn't see the graphic, but he's on LSU. He plays UCLA. Big time favorite. UCLA, my favorite college football future going into the year was UCLA under 5 wins. So that's my biggest college football future bet. And they got smoked by Indiana. I expect kind of more of the same with LSU. So it should be a showcase spot for a guy like Harold Perkins.
All right. So that's a little more in depth than we typically go on our prospects, but there's a lot of stuff about Harold Perkins, an interesting prospect for sure. Dibes, I'll throw it to you next. Who are you keeping an eye on for the Eagles?
All right. So I'm going to go with a team I always talk about. I feel like it's been kind of routine here. I'm a big Miami fan. I've talked about Cam Ward and Xavier Restrepo. And if you've been following along, they've been my players of the week and Eagles targets and things like that. But this time we're going to talk about a linebacker, and his name is Francisco Maui-Noa. And he's a really fun prospect. He was one of the top returning linebackers of 2024. Let me get his that's not his graphic. Let me get his graphic up so you can see what this guy is. But I think he's a really good linebacker. He's a guy that is a well-balanced linebacker. He can, in terms of the Philadelphia Eagles, he can blitz the quarterback. He can drop back in coverage. He's got really good size. And he's a transfer from Washington State, cough, Cam Ward, cough. So get used to the name Francisco Mauigoa, who we talk a lot about the Miami Hurricanes, who are, I think, on the up in a big way. I think Cam Ward is the leader for the Heisman as we currently stand. Again, 6'3", incredibly explosive, instinctive, at his best going downhill. But he's also multifaceted. He's a guy that can drop back. He's a guy that can, deflect passes. And I think that's exactly what the Eagles are looking for. He's a very good tackler. After watching the Eagles miss tackle after tackle against the Atlanta Falcons, this is a guy that can step right in, get after the quarterback, and deliver big hits when needed. This season, he's got 11 tackles, 5 run stops, 3 pressures, and a sack. Not really numbers that scream off the page like another linebacker we're talking about tonight in the Oklahoma and Tennessee game. But while in coverage, he's allowed 7 receptions on 10 targets, 34 yards, 0 touchdowns, just 32 yards after the catch. He's also got 3 passes defended. Just a well-balanced linebacker that I think would fit with the Philadelphia Eagles, probably in that like day 2, early day 3 range.
All right. Well, we're talking linebackers, so I'm going to go next here because I'm also on a linebacker. It's not very often that we get to talk about my team, and we're going to do it this week a couple of times. And so it seemed like a great time to plug linebacker Danny Stutzman from Oklahoma. He's a beast, man. He appeared in 10 games as a freshman in 2021. In 2022, he led the Big 12 in tackles with 125. And then last season, he was a third-team All-American. He's 6'4", 240-ish pounds. Last season, he had 104 tackles, 16 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, an interception, a touchdown, and 2 forced fumbles. In a world where offenses spread out, and so defenses got smaller, and now we're seeing the pendulum swing in the other direction where offenses are starting to run the ball more again. Stutzman's a guy who has prototypical size for the linebacker position, and he's got 4.6 speed-ish to boot. And so he's got consistent elite production over the last 2 years. He's a great tackler. He's played Mike, Sam, and Will for OU, so he's got versatility across a lot of different positions. He's a high IQ player in zone coverage. He excels hitting his landmarks and then reading routes in the QB's eyes. And I already said this, but I'll say it again because it particularly sticks out after watching the Eagles. He's a very good tackler. He can struggle in man coverage at times against like really athletic tight ends and running backs. It's not his strength. I still think you can task him with running up the seam with the tight end and you'll be fine though. The bigger concern is that he's overly aggressive in the way he reacts to play action and motion. You can manipulate him out of the way. A lot of times I feel like he doesn't trust his eyes, what he's looking at in the backfield. He also hasn't been used much as a blitzer. He's only got 268 career pass rushing snaps. So he is purely an off-ball linebacker. We have seen that position be devalued, and I don't think the pendulum's quite ready to swing in the other direction yet. So I don't think he's a round 1 guy, but I do think he's got a lot of potential as an early day 2 pick. So that is my guy, Danny Stutzman. I remember talking about him last year because I thought he was going to go pro. He came back. We love him for it. Hopefully he's got a good game this weekend. So, all right. And that brings us to Ryan. And Ryan, are we going to complete the clean sweep with linebackers? Or are we going tight end again?
Listen, guys, I really hate to disappoint here. I literally have 2 positions that I want to talk about. And usually linebacker's one of them. But I will not. I will be going to the other side of the ball and we'll be going back down to LSU. And we're going to be looking at Mason Taylor. Mason, whose father many of you may know, Jason Taylor. His uncle is Zach Thomas. So he's got some, certainly Hall of Fame pedigree in his bloodline here. But Yeah, Mason honestly has just such a natural catching ability, soft hands, and just is able to kind of go up and get that ball and just kind of, you know, grab it out of the air. And he's also able to kind of get yards after the catch as well. Good 50-50 ball guy, good chain mover. He seems to be, you know, a pretty reliable target there for LSU. Um, Last week they played South Carolina, able to secure that victory. Um, he was 6 for 58 yards and a touchdown. In fact, I think he's second overall in receptions this year in tight ends, only trailing Colston Loveland out of Michigan, who I believe Dibes looked at earlier this year for us. But yeah, this is a guy that could come in and again, be that tight end 2 immediately, huge upgrade immediately, and kind of take that transition over, you know, from Dallas Goedert here. It's clear that that offensively, that's a big need for the Eagles. You know, he certainly does need to work on some run blocking. And you know, again, he just isn't the quickest guy, but most tight ends really aren't. I'm not that concerned about it. But yeah, take a look at Mason Taylor when they hopefully beat down UCLA this week.
All right. So there you have it, Ryan. Not disappointing. Sticking to his guns, linebackers and tight ends, 4 days. So there it is. There's 4 guys you can keep an eye on. 3 linebackers / maybe 1 hybrid edge rusher and a tight end. We're going to roll forward now to our player of the week predictions. Each week, we each select a player of the week. We track scores throughout the year, and Dibes is running away with this one just a little bit, which is really frustrating. He has gotten first all 3 weeks. His Jackson Dart pick last week, once again, won the day. I got second with Caden Salter. Mark had third with Tet McMillan, and Theo Weiss Jr. Bombed out for Ryan. And so as the standings sit right now, Dibes has 9 points, and we all have 3 points. We all have a second, third, and fourth place finish. Dibes has all 3 first places, so we can't let that stand. So Dibes, we'll let you lead us off here, though. Tell us who your player of the week is.
Yeah, it's a total race. Let me talk about Ashton Genty, one of the considered first-round picks of the 2025 NFL Draft. Certified beast. Through 2 games this year, he's averaging 10 yards a carry, 459 yards, 9 touchdowns. He's got 9 runs of 10 yards or more, 18 first downs, 18 forced missed tackles. He's only got 5 receptions on 8 targets for 13 yards this year, but he's a very good receiver out of the backfield. He's 5'9", 215 pounds. Ideal frame, though, I think, for an NFL running back. He runs with a low center of gravity. He's got great balance as a runner. He's explosive. He runs with a physicality between the tackles, turning the corner. This week, Boise State takes on Portland State, a team that's 0-2 and a defense that's giving up 56.5 points per game. The 2 teams they lost to, Washington State and Weber State. Washington State had 224 yards rushing in that game. Weber State had 316 yards on the ground. Guys, just give me 12 points. We can just move on to the next week.
Boo,
Wow.
boo. I do not like that. Mark, who did you pick that is going to take down Dibes' selection here?
I went with Garrett Nussmeier, LSU's quarterback. And like I said before, I think this is a beatdown spot for LSU to kind of get back right. And by the way, I'll use this opportunity to say there's you look at I'll talk Garrett Nussmeier first. I won't disrespect him, actually. But he's averaging almost 300 yards a game. And South Carolina, a better defense than he's going to face here against UCLA. He's got 10 passing touchdowns, so a little over 3 passing touchdowns per game so far, 70% completion percentage. So LSU's had some problems so far to start the year. He has not been one of them. He has kind of lived up to the hype, in my opinion. So The funny thing I'll say is the college football playoff obviously has 12 teams that are getting in, but everyone keeps saying the top 12. It's really 11 because the group of 5 is going to get one in. And you look at the SEC right now, and there are just so many teams in the SEC that are kind of expecting to get in right now. And you look at the odds, there are teams that are minus 500, minus 300, minus 400, minus 200 just to make the playoffs. You look at the top 7 in the AP top 25 right now. There's 6 SEC teams. And I think LSU sitting at 16, you look at their schedule, all their tough games are at home. So they might kind of back their way into this conversation. They already have one loss, but it's going to be really interesting to see. And the one thing I'll say is Alabama plus 255 to miss the playoffs. Sorry for the tangent. I think that's worth a little bite at the apple.
Wow, interesting.
All right, so there you have it for Mark going quarterback. Ryan, what about you? You picking a linebacker or tight end for your player of the week too?
No, I'm going to be smart this week, and I'm going to pick a quarterback, and I'm going to actually go with quarterback Josh Hoover, the quarterback for TCU. So far this year, he's thrown for over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns. He's just been super efficient. They unfortunately, were lost a close one to UCF, who UCF is a sneaky good team this year. But so far he's been very consistent, throwing, at a high clip. And he's got a tough matchup against SMU, but it seems like, when he's in close games, when he's in tough matchups, that's where he seems to shine, puts up really good numbers. So I'm looking for Josh to put up some solid numbers. And honestly, I don't even care if I win as long as, this guy doesn't. I'm good. So
sneaky
I like
good.
that pick a lot.
I was about to say, Mark, like that was a sneaky good pick. I did not expect that. I'm impressed.
One of my favorite bets of the week, maybe my favorite bet of the week, is TCU minus 2.5 against SMU. I'm also sprinkling on TCU team total over 30.5. They've scored over 34 points in each of their first 3 games. You look at SMU's defense, not a lot to really be wowed with. So I like where you're at there for sure.
Yep.
All right. Well, that leaves me. I'm going to go quarterback as well. He was the talk of college football briefly. Give me Arch Manning, quarterback for Texas this week. Quinn Ewers leaves the game with an injury, which was really weird because he wasn't even contacted on his last play. Apparently, it was traced back to a couple plays before. It's an oblique strain. Arch Manning comes in and he throws a 19-yard touchdown pass on his first play of the game. The next drive, he has a 67-yard touchdown run. Mannings aren't supposed to move like that. He ended the game throwing for 223 yards and 4 touchdowns. He had 53 rushing yards and 1 touchdown. And this week, Texas hosts University of Louisiana Monroe as 44.5-point favorites. I'm banking on the fact they're going to keep Quinn Ewers out. They've got Mississippi State, OU, and Georgia up next. The oblique injury, that's something that you don't want to mess with. You don't want to get him out there too early, getting him hit, getting him trying to rotate and throw the ball and really aggravate that with some tough opponents coming up. So it seems really unlikely Ewers will play. This might be my one shot to get Arch Manning. And I can still say I can double dip Texas exposure and get Quinn Ewers later in the season. So I'm trying to play the game here a little bit. Also, I mean, if you are Texas and you start your backup quarterback against UL Monroe, it's not like you're going to go to the third string guy. You're just going to run your offense the whole game. So maybe they pile up a lot of points trying to maximize reps for Manning in this one. So that's my strategy. I'm thinking outside the box. We'll see if it pays off this week because it really hasn't the rest of the season. So turning over a new leaf here. So, all right. That does it for our player of the week predictions. Let's get into our game of the week breakdown. It is number 6 Tennessee traveling to Norman to take on number 15 OU at 7:30 on ABC on Saturday. Tennessee is a 7.5-point favorite in this game. Mark, Do you know how long it's been since OU was a touchdown underdog at home?
How long?
1997 was the last time. So we're in uncharted territory here. Normally I throw to you guys first, but I'll lead off on some thoughts on this one and throw it to you guys. Throughout the season, defense has been Oklahoma's strength. The offense has been a major work in progress. A lot of that comes from their offensive line being a bit of a disaster. So our starting center was injured in week 1. He only played 10 snaps. The backup right guard moved to center for a game, and then he got injured, and he's been out for the year, or he's out for the year now. So they're on their third center now. Overall, they have 11 offensive linemen who have gotten snaps through 3 games. And this is a team that lost all of their starters last season. So O-line continuity is a big thing, and they have had none. And so it's hard to tell, like, are these guys bad? Or are they good and they just don't have live reps? But the time to figure that out is past, because Tennessee comes to town. Tennessee ranks first in points per game. They rank third in points per game allowed. And oh, by the way, just to add to the intrigue, their head coach, Josh Heupel, was the quarterback for Oklahoma in 2000 when they won their national title. So all kinds of intersecting storylines in this one. It's going to be OU's defense against Tennessee's offense. OU is only allowed 265 yards a game. They forced 10 turnovers in 3 games, allowing only 2.2 yards per carry and 11.3 points per game. Danny Stutzman, the guy I highlighted earlier, is going to be big. He's got 33 tackles. Austin Bowman is going to be big in the secondary. Hopefully the Eagles, Billy Bowman. I said Austin. I went to high school with a guy named Austin Bowman. OU is also supposed to be getting their wide receiver Nick Anderson back. He's missed the first 3 games of the season. I haven't seen an update, but I know last week they said that they expected him to play in the Tulane game or for sure in this game, and he didn't play in the Tulane game. So a lot of injury things going on for OU. Tennessee's starting a freshman quarterback. Can they rattle him on the road? I don't know. I kind of think I'd take Tennessee and lay the points here, but that's mostly out of a lack of faith in the offensive line for Oklahoma. Mark, what are you thinking on this game? Is Tennessee the good bet here? What are you expecting to see?
I pulled up the lyrics to a song here. So it's wish that I was on old Rocky Top down in the Tennessee hills. I won't go all
You had to pull up the lyrics for that?
No, yeah, right? Come on. Don't you know that by heart?
I have no idea what song that is.
Rocky Top.
Rocky
Top.
One
of the best traditions in college football.
Rocky
them singing Tennessee, or them singing Rocky Top at Tennessee. Obviously, this game's on the road, but I love Tennessee here. I'm laying the points with Tennessee. I think this is one of many upcoming losses for the Oklahoma Sooners. If you take a look at that schedule, and Shane mentioned that Tennessee's starting a quarterback, and normally I would look at that as a negative, but I think he's the best player in the country, and Nico Iamaleava at Tennessee. I think he's going to win the Heisman, and I think this is going to be a showcase spot for him early on in the season. I think he's a future top pick way down the line, probably 2026. So I love Nico, and he's the difference in the game. But another difference in the game is I think Tennessee's defense is not what it's been over the last couple of years. Over the last couple of years, in the years with Joe Milton at quarterback and Hendon Hooker at quarterback a couple of years ago, they were so reliant on the offense and so reliant on having to score 50 to go win a game. But now Josh Heupel is really recruited at a different level than Tennessee had recruited at before, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And you see that with a guy like James Pierce, who's maybe going to be the number 1 pick next year, or very much going to be at least a top 5, top 10 pick at worst. And they've got other NFL guys all over that defense, whether that be next year or in the future. So I think that there's a lot of reasons to be excited about Tennessee, but namely it's got to start with James Pierce on the defensive side of the ball and Nico at quarterback.
All right. Don't like Mark's answers. So Ryan, I'm going to throw it to you and see if I like your answer better. Are you riding with the Sooners, or is this going to be a long Saturday for me?
I was hoping me and Mark could just do a nice duet of Rocky Top. I was good to continue singing. I'm not gonna lie. Listen, when you brought up the fact that Oklahoma hasn't been a 7-point underdog at home since what was it, 96, 97?
1997.
Yeah, I don't think they've been a home dog at all since about 2016. And I think that was Ohio State when Ohio State came in there and whooped them pretty good. Shane, I'm sure you remember that one. Sorry, I'm just really just trying to pile this on for Shane. They are going to get dominated by Tennessee. I'm absolutely going Tennessee here. They will absolutely cover. You guys are right. Nico right now is one of, if not the best player in college football right now, and it's shown through his first couple of games this year. And you back that up with a defense that has players all over the place. Pierce, again, I think it would be wild if he gets out of the top 5. I just think coming in here, I just don't think the defense of the Sooners are going to be able to stop that potent offense of Tennessee. They clearly can score at will. So I'm going to assume that Tennessee is going to get up early and then run. And that'll be all she wrote. So go Vols.
All right. Well, I've been stabbed in the back twice. Dives, you going to make it a clean sweep here?
Yeah, of course. I'm Tennessee all the way. If you've been following along, I've been one of the biggest Nico Iamaleava's fans, period, since we started. I think he's pound for pound, regarding his upside, the best quarterback in the country. And Arch Manning changes that a little bit. We'll see how that looks this week. But let's talk about an underrated star for the Tennessee Vols, and that's Dylan Sampson. This is a guy that was Jalen Wright's backup in 2023, who, by the way, was my number 1 running back in the class. He forced a missed tackle 29% of attempts last year. This season, he's run for over 100 yards per game in all 3 games. He's got 9 touchdowns. He's got 13 runs of 10 yards or more. So keep an eye out for Dylan Sampson. He's a really good running back. I feel like amongst the immense talent at Tennessee, he's kind of in the shadow. But for the sake of Shane, let's talk about Oklahoma just a little bit, because I feel like they're getting shot on just a tad. Let's talk about Jackson Arnold, who I think is a really fun quarterback. Jackson Arnold is a guy that really came out like gangbusters against the Temple Owls, threw really well under pressure. I thought he looked really good, against the blitz. He's got a quick release. He shows poise and composure in the pocket. He's a big-time home run hitter with arm talent to drive balls downfield. But after that, it's a little bit sketchy, Shane. I'm sorry. I've been following this guy quite a bit. 37.5% completion percentage and a quarterback rating of 33.9 this season when under pressure. He has not been good lately. 112 quarterback rating when kept clean in the pocket. So absolutely paramount for Oklahoma to do a really good job on James Pierce Jr. So I agree, Mark. That was a really good take. I think James Pierce Jr. versus Jackson Arnold is the matchup to watch in this thing. So I think Jackson Arnold is a really good prospect, but at the end of the day, I think the Vols win in a big way.
All right. Yeah, I had brief hope in the first half of the Tulane game because the offensive line looked good, Jackson Arnold looked good, and then they just started blitzing and it all fell apart last week. So I don't have a lot of confidence either, but I'm hoping miracles can happen and maybe the defense will just carry the day for the Eagles. And I did play a college football 25 game earlier this week, and I got randomly matched against a guy playing as Tennessee, and I beat him 28-7. So I'm just saying maybe it was an omen. That's all I'm going to say. Yes.
I want to throw one name out there for Oklahoma as well, because I feel like this has been a predominantly Tennessee-driven show. Deion Burks, if you're looking for a slot receiver, 5'9", 190 pounds. He's a guy that can create separation, take the top off of defense as well. He's a good route runner. Oklahoma has had a lot of injured wide receivers lately. You brought up Nick Anderson. That is a big question mark to watch, as well as Branson Hickman, who is, per PFF, take it for a grain of salt, was their number 2 ranked center in college football last year. If he plays, he's right there. He's practicing. He's ready to go. We'll see if he plays or not. But I think it's going to be a great game. But at the end of the day, Nico Iamaleava is pound for pound the best quarterback in the country.
All right. Well, there you guys have it. You have our Eagles prospects to watch. You've got our player of the week predictions. You've got our game of the week breakdown. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Armchair Scouts. If you enjoyed the show, be sure you hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications so you don't miss our next episode. Subscribe to the Eagles Pin Pull Network feed. You can get all the great shows on there. 6 shows a week, 6 long form shows a week. And then we've got daily quick hitters that release every morning. You can check us out on Twitter. I am at Shane Half NFL. Dives is at Mr. Crockpot. Ryan is at Philly Sports PSA. Mark is at Mark Henry Jr. _. And we will catch you guys next time for another episode of the Armchair Scouts.